How's it going, everybody? So in this video I wanted to talk about my training, my nutrition, and my supplementation coming into my Jiu-Jitsu tournament recently. Okay, so I figure obviously I've got to make a video like this. Number one, because I just plain out want to, um, and number two, because my performance that day was abnormally high. It was absolutely at its highest. And so that tells me everything I did to peak myself for that moment was absolutely on point. And considering I'm a health guru here on YouTube, not proclaimed by myself, but proclaimed by my subscribers, because I personally don't like to identify as anything or attach myself to a label, but whatever, I don't really care. You've got to label things in life, so fuck it. I'm Wolfgang Lozana, the health guru on YouTube. You know, I talk about herbs and nutrition, and I'm also a strength and conditioning coach, so, and a personal trainer of like 8 years, something like that. So of course, all this shit's real important and relevant. Not that I need to, whatever, say that, but anyway, so let's talk about what I did. So first of all, the Jiu-Jitsu tournament, that's 4 different opponents, okay? I had 4 different matches. That's a lot of matches, and especially because it's one after the other, but with kind of like a 3 to 5 minute break, depending on how long the other matches last. So for me, that's actually easier than what I do in training. In training, we usually do like 6 5-minute rounds with only 1 minute rests in between. And that's almost every single day. Provided every match is not, every training round is not as hard as you possibly can. And when you're in a competition, the adrenaline's high and you're basically there to destroy your opponent. At least that's how it should be. So especially in the white belt division, these, white belts tend to be a lot very sloppy, very aggressive. They tend to exert all of their energy as fast as possible. Not me, obviously, because I've been in sports for long enough to know better. And so it's a lot more intense, anyways, what I'm trying to say. So anyway, what did I do leading up to the competition, okay? And I'll say that I felt like an absolute god when I was competing this time. And it all has to do with my preparation. So I competed in the 210-pound class, and I weighed in at 191 pounds. That means everybody else was anywhere from 10 to 20 pounds heavier than me. And I had actually talked to each of my opponents after I won and asked them how much they weighed in at. And they all weighed in at least 205 pounds that day or more. So pretty much I weighed 15 pounds less than everybody else, but I still destroyed them. And I don't feel arrogant or narcissistic for saying that, because I definitely did very, very good that day. They all had equal chances to prepare. Most of them actually competed previously a couple weeks before that, so they should have been well prepared and aware of their mistakes. So anyway, let's see, and I won gold, so come on, guys, that's destruction in my opinion. So let's see, so yeah, 15 pounds weight advantage, but I still won. That's pretty significant. So let's see, pretty much I've been training relatively consistently at Ohana Academy for about a year and a half. Like I started training Jiu-Jitsu pretty seriously around June of 2020. So that's about a year and a half, give or take. And I was kind of dabbling in Jiu-Jitsu before that, but the instructor I had I wasn't a fan of. I didn't really learn much. I didn't really like the structure of those classes, so I didn't really train Jiu-Jitsu in my opinion before then. So I'd say June of 2020 is when I really started officially. And so I started off with 3-a-days and all sorts of crazy shit. I trained all fucking day at that point. So anyway, so for this competition, I was actually preparing to compete at the 185-pound class. So I was cutting weight, and I was training to fight guys who were 185 pounds or less, basically. And so what I did during training was pretty intense. I literally was fasting the entire day, and I was eating 1 meal a day. So I would wake up at like 9 a.m. I would drink my coffee and tonic herbs, and I'll get into the exact tonic herbs I was taking here in a bit. And then I wouldn't eat anything until 9 or 10 p.m. every night, pretty much. And I would train, I would go do my strength and conditioning at around 10 a.m. And then I would train all my clients and everything. And then around 6 p.m. I would go train Juijitsu. Some days I would just do an hour and a half of Juijitsu. Other days I would do 2.5 hours of Juijitsu. And I would do that fasted the entire day. So I hadn't eaten anything the entire day. And then at 6 p.m., I'm already deep into a 20-hour fast at that point. I go and train my ass off in Jiu-Jitsu. And I usually do strength and conditioning in the morning. So I train twice, sometimes 3 times during a 20-hour fast. And during the first 2 weeks of that, I felt awful. I wouldn't say I felt awful, but it's just I had to really tone down the intensity of my training to where I was only playing close guard. I was basically I would have people start in my close guard, and I would submit them from close guard or whatever, sweep them. And I would just play pass or sweep, basically. But occasionally there would be like some white belts who just couldn't train controlled, and they would go crazy, and I'd have to overexert myself. And I kept injuring my left hamstring whenever I would train with some crazy white belt. So that was pretty hard. But after the first 2 weeks of training fasted, my body adapted. And when my body adapted, and I was also on a keto diet, I ate basically 2 pounds of meat at the nighttime, and then I'd eat berries and non-starchy vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, etc. And of course, the only reason I ate those vegetables is because, I enjoyed the texture, but also I did feel like it was doing something. It was making me feel more like balanced. I don't know how to describe it in scientific terms because it wouldn't make sense, but I did enjoy that. So it was like meat, berries, and non-starchy vegetables, basically. And I'd eat 2 pounds of meat a night. And obviously the berries didn't exceed 30 grams of net carbs, obviously. So, and when you fast an entire day and you train the way I do, 30 grams of net carbs, eating 1 meal a day, is not going to kick you out of ketosis. I literally tasted ketones in my mouth the entire 2 months I was doing that. It was crazy. My mouth tasted like just extreme ketones. If I did test, I ran out of ketone strips a long time ago. That shit gets expensive. But if I tested my blood ketone level, or my breath ketone level, if I would have done a breathalyzer, my blood ketone level probably was, I don't even know, 6 to 8. That's super deep ketosis on the verge of danger. But anyway, yeah, my mouth tasted like absolute ketone heaven. It was crazy. So yeah, you'd be like, all these motherfuckers who are like, oh, I have to eat sugar every couple hours. And here I am training over 20 hours without eating anything at all, let alone carbs, training multiple times during that time. So yeah, after the first 2 weeks, my body adapted. And I actually believe training during fasting and training during a ketogenic diet and fasting, doing 1 meal a day, I think training helps your body adapt faster. Because a big part of the adapting to ketosis and fasting is not so much making your body create ketones from fatty acids, but getting your body to start absorbing those the ketones and getting your body to convert lactate, pyruvate, triglycerides or glycerol, free fatty acids. You're getting your body to convert these fatty acids and these other precursors into carbohydrates, okay, into glucose molecules, which is supposedly is like a myth and like is impossible according to mainstream. Anyway, I digress. I made plenty of very deep videos explaining why your body can adapt to actually creating its own endogenous carbohydrates. It's just, but like I'm saying, it takes a long time if you lower the intensity of your exercise. A lot of that's nocebo. People feel like crap. They expect themselves to feel like crap on fasted diets and low-carb diets. And so they do feel like crap, so they lower their training to try to make themselves feel better. And they basically nocebo themselves into, number one, making the adaptation period longer, and number two, lowering their sports performance. Because when you train less intensely, you get a detraining effect, and your body loses those adaptations that it had before you lowered the training intensity. So what I do is I up the volume of my training, and I might moderate the intensity a little bit. And usually when I fast like that, and I'm on a keto diet, I actually have an overwhelming urge to train more. I actually, like when I go to the grocery store, and this is not exaggeration, it's really weird. When I go to the grocery store and I have groceries in my hands and stuff, I find myself running the groceries to my car. And I always park at the very, very end of the grocery store instead of just walking. Like I guess I have like a never-ending pool of energy to pull from when I'm keto adapted and I'm doing 1 meal a day, but especially if I'm just keto adapted. I just feel like I can go all day. My NEAT, non-activity exercise thermogenesis or whatever, increases drastically. And I find myself dancing around and just like, if you ask people at my jiu-jitsu class, they'll tell you, they're like, bro, like he's like on cocaine or something, which I'm not. I'll get into the supplements I take later. Anyway, so I felt like shit the first 2 weeks, then I felt like a god after I adapted. So that was it. So my strength work was, I don't know why, but I decided to do basically a really fucked up version of 5x5 twice a week. It was basically Jim Wendler's 531, but it was his 5s Pro version of 531. And I'm a strength and conditioning coach who regularly makes my own custom programming templates for my clients. And I always get people to just get amazing results, like the novice phase of strength, like basically deadlifting 400, squatting 300, benching over 200. That shit goes by within after 2 months for all my clients who can adhere. And I have a female who I got to be able to bench press 140 within 2 months of working with me, which is pretty amazing for a female. So my own programming skills are amazing, but for some reason I had an infatuation with Jim Wendler's 531, and I ran his 5s Pro method, which I have an explanation as to why, but I'm not going to say why. It takes too long. But basically it's very similar to the top set method with back downs that a lot of the most elite level powerlifters use. But it's just that there's no RPE system. So it's kind of dumb to do sports training and fasting and gym work. Anyway, so it was basically a 5x5, but it was a bastardized version. And I ran that until like Christmas. Okay, so Christmas time came, the 24th of December, and I felt like crap. I felt ran down. So took a couple days off. And then starting in December, I ran my own auto-regulated program. So I was basically squatting, benching, deadlifting, and overhead pressing 3 times a week. I would basically work up to like 3 sets of 3 or 3 sets of 5 at an RPE of like 7 or 8, and I just used sets across until the rate of perceived exertion reached about a 9. Typically I just do 3 sets starting at RP 8, right? And I take as much time as I needed to keep the RP at 8. And as I got closer to my competition, I started to lower the reps and basically peak my force output using sets of 3 and do more. And I was doing more power-based exercises. So on top of squat, bench, deadlift, and overhead press, I was doing high rep upper back work for the endurance training effect. and I was doing clean and jerk, I was doing power snatch, and basically these exercises, my training sessions, my strength and conditioning, when I was doing this would last 3 to 4 hours sometimes, like 2 or 3 hours. It would get pretty freaking tedious doing that 3 times a week. So when I was about 2 weeks out from my competition, I felt like I was overtrained, so I just completely stopped all my strength and conditioning, and I just added more jiu-jitsu. So I was just doing a lot more jiu-jitsu. I was doing jiu-jitsu every single day. I would stay 3 or 4 hours some nights. And starting in January, I also started training fighters for Southside Fight Club. My friend Brandon Gutierrez, also known as Al Canonero, he's actually fighting here in about an hour and a half. So after this video, I'm going to go straight to the venue. And then Adam Gates, who's also fighting on that card. I'm not going to say too many details. And I was also training a couple other fighters, and I'm still training them. But basically, I started to train at their gym. And their instructor is really great. He was teaching me top pressure, which is something I hadn't learned yet, and how to basically keep the top position no matter what, how to use leverage, how to keep my chest up, and how to sprawl out on top of somebody, and how to sense when somebody's body position changes so that I can adjust my leverage and keep them pinned down without using strength. So that was very, very effective for my competition, considering a lot of what I did was sprawl them down and take their back the entire time. So let's see. So I was training at their gym 1 to 3 times a week, and then when I got closer to my competition, at Ohana Academy, my instructors started to do competition class Tuesday and Thursday, and that was Shark Tanks. That was a lot of live drilling, and it was really, really live and intense. Like for an hour, it was just an hour straight of live training, and that got me really into the competition mentality. I started having trouble breathing during that time, probably because of some foods I was eating. And then the air is very humid in Ohana because there's a shit ton of people in there, even though it's a huge facility. And then it was cold, so they had the heater on. So it just smelled like a giant swamp of people's body odor. So I had to take a step out in between rounds, but it was hardcore. But anyway, on top of that, at Ohana, I can get a lot of live rolling because they have open mats and stuff after class, which already has a lot of rolling. And I was also training other clients at my other job, so I was very low on time, and so I did a lot more training at Ohana, just rolling, the last 2 weeks of my fight. Whereas when I went to Southside Fight Club, we would do rolling. Sometimes we'd warm up with rolling, but it was a lot of technique and a lot of like skill drilling. So it'd be like an hour or two of philosophy and discussing the principles and then drilling those principles, which I really, really like a lot. So another thing that we did at Ohana is I hired my coach to give me privates, and he was basically he's my coach, Jesse Borden, and he actually won a bronze medal at Jiu-Jitsu Worlds last year as a brand new purple belt. So for anybody at IBJJF Worlds, so for anybody who knows Jiu-Jitsu competition, you know that first of all, to place at all at Worlds is pretty significant because usually you have like 20 different competitors in a bracket at the World Championships at IBJJF. The second thing is he had just got promoted to purple belt from blue belt. So when you get promoted to a new belt and then you compete anywhere, usually it's really hard because you could be competing up against people who've been a purple belt for a long time. And especially at IBJJF Worlds, usually these people are seasoned competitors that compete there. So for him to win bronze at IBJJF Worlds, that was just amazing. So Anyway, so we drilled my game plan. He helped me develop my game plan, and we just were working on my game plan starting 2 weeks out. And then during practice, rolling, I just rolled all the time, 2 weeks out, and practiced my game plan every single time. And my game plan was to engage in the stand-up grappling and get a dominant clinch position, and then get a guillotine and sprawl them out, basically using my leverage and pressure to bring them down, to pressure them down to the mat into a fetal position, or what we call turtle, and then just spinning around to take the back and get the hooks in immediately and choke them out. And one of my friends, who's a purple belt, his name's Adrian, he taught me a lapel choke with the half Nelson. And some people are claiming it's a bow and arrow choke, but from what I gather, it's not an actual bow and arrow choke because I don't get the leg around. It's a lapel choke with a half Nelson. And you could see the 2 submissions I got in my match, and I did actually get that position a couple times on other people. But the 2 submission wins I won were with this choke. And the thing is, I was just practicing sprawling people out from stand-up, taking the back and getting the hooks in, and dominating the back. And dominating the back the whole match, that's what I've been practicing, and then that half Nelson choke. And so it does not surprise me that that's how I won. That's all I've been practicing. And I've been visualizing that sequence over and over again leading up to it. So and it's amazing how it actually turned out to actually come into reality at my competition. So, yeah, the exact game plan you see me winning in those matches, which I'm going to be releasing the full videos here soon, that was what I practiced over and over again leading into it. So there's that. And then my diet, again, it was that 1 meal a day, just meat, berries, broccoli, whatever. And occasionally I would do MCTs in the morning, but I stopped doing that because I felt like it was dehydrating me, and I felt way, way better with none of that. So what herbs and supplements did I take? I was just taking a teaspoon of Hyperion Herbs Reishi before bed and a half a teaspoon of cordyceps in the morning at the beginning of December. But then I decided I was going to try some completely new herb stack. So I basically told Brandon from Hyperion Herbs I'm just going to try all of his best men's health, testosterone, sports, performance herbs and just stack them up. That's what I did. So I basically took a half a teaspoon of cordyceps, a teaspoon of nettle root extract, a half a teaspoon of pine pollen, and a half a teaspoon of Polyrhacus ant every single morning. I removed the reishi because I felt like it was a monk herb. It wasn't like a warrior herb. And then I added rhodiola. I was taking rhodiola already. I was taking 500 milligrams in the morning, then 500 milligrams in the evening. I would usually drink super strong coffee in the morning, and then sometimes a caffeine pill before training later on. And I experimented with different dosages, and I actually found if I took 3 tablespoons of pine pollen before my hardest training, and if I up my dose of cordyceps to like a teaspoon, or I take an extra half a teaspoon before training, that I felt like a god. I honestly feel like pine pollen and cordyceps gave me the most amazing boost in physical performance. Like, it was not just boosting my energy levels, but it made my muscles feel like they can go forever. And I'll have to make a separate video about that because those were very profound. And I think megadosing pine pollen is going to be a normal kind of thing that I do in the future. And I think these are parts of my secret now. I didn't really want to like announce to the world what about this, but I'm sure eventually someone will know and find out how powerful this is. So maybe I could be the first one who actually starts talking about it. I don't know. But I think the pine pollen and cordyceps gave me a crazy edge. So basically, before my actual competition, I took 3 tablespoons of pine pollen, 3 tablespoons of bee pollen. I took like a whole tablespoon of cordyceps from Hyperion Herbs. Now, most people have never had real cordyceps. They only have the shit cordyceps, like Host Defense or Herbs or some of the bullshit you buy from Amazon or from the store. That crap ain't going to do jack shit for you. Like, people think, they're like, oh yeah, I feel a boost, but it's like a placebo. But if you take the shit from Hyperion Herbs, first of all, if you just take 1/4 of a teaspoon, you'll ask yourself if if Wolfgang's crazy, because 1/4 of a teaspoon makes you feel like you're on crack. But you take a whole tablespoon of cordyceps like I did, oh my God. But people at training, they kept thinking I'm a freak. They're like, he's a savage. Why is he so hyper and full of energy? I bet that burp sounded really high quality with this microphone. And it's like, they don't even know. I kept telling them, it's part of it's diet. The other part of it's these tonic herbs I'm taking. But none of them have ever tried like real high quality tonic herbs, let alone cordyceps and pine pollen. My freaking God, I felt like it was like the closest natural, like legal thing to steroids that you could possibly get on. It was absolutely amazing. So anyway, I don't think anyone listening to this is going to try. I don't think the mainstream's ever going to really catch on to this. So I just don't want people like when all my guys start really winning, then people will be like, well, what is he doing? You know, like, is he on some extra supplements? It's like pine pollen and cordyceps, guys. And anyway, so on top of that, I was also taking L-Tyrosine. L-Tyrosine is kind of a hit or miss supplement, but when it works, it makes you feel like just super motivated, euphoric, and it really helps you push through hard times. It kind of numbs that feeling of stress and turns into motivation, basically, where you actively seek out hard challenges. So I was taking that sometimes before training. So then eventually I switched to the 210-pound class about 2 weeks out from my jiu-jitsu competition. So when I did that was when I started to add rice to my diet. I was still doing 1 meal a day because I adapted to it, but I started adding honey before training. I would start to dose honey before training, and then I would eat a whole cup of dry jasmine rice after training. And I started carbing up, but it was more like a week out. 1 week out is when I started carbing up because I was already cutting for like 185. Now, if you ask me why I didn't just compete at 185, the reason is at that point at my work at LA Fitness, the scale kept saying I was 195. And I'm like, why am I 195 if I've been eating 1 meal a day and fasting and doing all this shit? I should be at 185. So I don't know if the scale was rigged or what. But when I weighed in at 191 the morning of competition, it surprised the hell out of me because I started adding a shit ton of rice that week. So I should have been 198 or something, right? I was doing that to try to like gain weight to compete with the bigger guys. So I think I actually was at like 185 already, and the scale at my work was 10 pounds heavier, which is kind of suspicious. So I don't know, but I expected that I wasn't going to be able to make weight for my competition at that rate for whatever reason. And I also felt like I didn't really care whether I competed with 15 pounds heavier guys or not, because I've been training strength so vigorously for so long that I should be stronger than everybody else. So it's like, fuck it. They're 15 pounds heavier than me. I'll still dominate them. And so I probably could have smashed the 185-pound group. And the other thing is that they seemed like their bracket had one person short if I joined. And so chances are there would have been a heavier guy that joined anyway. So I didn't want to try to make weight the day of competition and then end up fighting heavier guys anyway. So if the competition weighed in one day before, the day before competition, it would have been different. I could have done a water cut, sat in the sauna for a while and lost the extra weight, and then gained it all back. That would have been fine. But because Grappling Industries, you weigh in the day of competition, you don't want to dehydrate yourself or anything like that to make weight, because then you'll have a significant performance problem. So I weighed in the day of competition, and I weighed in at 191 anyway. I didn't really give a fuck. So I did start smashing carbs and going to buffets with my friends the week of competition, trying to gain weight. But none of that shit mattered. I still destroyed the competition, and it was great. And honestly, my sleep quality started to go down when I added carbs back in. So I've noticed time and time again when I'm keto adapted that I perform better and I feel better. But, you know, it is what it is. It didn't really matter either way. So I'll make a video about like what I'm going to do moving forward. But right now I'm running out of time. Two of my clients are about to fight here in about an hour, so I'm going to head over to the venue and watch them get the victory. You know, and then we're gonna keep training them and train them hardcore. And yeah, so my schedule was hardcore too, like this entire camp. I started school the month leading into the camp. I picked up a lot more clients. I started training fighters. And I've been, commuting over to the south side to train at their gym, you know, a couple times a week. So I've been super, super busy. But, you know, it's all about the mentality. And I visualized myself winning. I affirmed. I have a whole affirmation app that I use. I visualized myself with a gold medal. I started wearing my silver medal around that I won previously. And I told everyone I was going to win. And I fully affirmed it and had faith in it. And when the competition came, when I was in tough spots, I told myself, nope, you're a gold medalist. You're going to win. And telling myself I'm going to win, telling myself I'm a gold medalist, reminding myself the importance of me winning, all of those things significantly improved my chances. So I'm going to get out of here. Let me know if you have any specific questions you want me to address in future videos on this topic or any topic at all, and I'll do it. I'll make a video. Subscribe, and I'll talk to you all next time.